part of your mind you're building that in, this ego, this little conceptual space, this left brain, this ego, this little, playpen that you've got inside your head where you're building this castle is tiny compared to the immense grandeur and power of the world. And this is where the unconscious lives. It lives outside the ego. It lives in the right brain. You want to get there. You want to build your castle in relationship with this thing. But we obviously make this mistake of grabbing our jargon and putting together this little egoic palace where we can be king, where we can stand up and we can look at all those working class plebs who don't read books and be like, you're pathetic. I am better than you because I have a castle in my mind. When I throw my jargon at you and you kind of get turned off and you're kind of like, this is kind of annoying, stop doing this. Well, you can just say, well, it's because you're ignorant. It's because you're poorly read. It's because you're driven by your instincts. And perhaps there's something to that, but there's not as much to it as you think. Perhaps there's something to the opposite. Perhaps there's something to the reverence of your instincts. And of course, when you see this character that Jung finds in this brilliant, brilliant chapter, a woman who is out of touch with her instincts, a animus infected woman, if you will. And she is old and she is not married, and I assume she doesn't have children. And so you get this kind of sad thing. And look, I'm not here to bash the girls, but it is something to kind of warn and worry yourself about, is that, like, you're into the intellectual stuff, you're a thinker, you're up in your head, you're like they would call it neurotic. And there's a really dark side to the pleasure, the addiction to abstraction, the addiction to the world of ideas, and that is the sterility of it. Think of the priestly caste, the castrated, sterile thinking caste, the Brahmin caste, the type of person who gets absorbed in ideas. They leave the body because the body is a prison that holds them back from their vivid imagination or their vivid world of concepts. But of course, if this happens to you, you might, in order to conquer your instincts, might destroy the one thing that will derive all your meaning and purpose in your life. The instincts are not stupid. Their insistence that you achieve the basics of life, such as perhaps children or a future or engagement with life, these type of things, experiences, these type of things. This is not trivial, not stuff you can specifically dismiss. And so she was the type, and she was chirpy and quirky, the type, like kind of cool, kind of like funny, maybe smart auntie or something like that, but she might have been haunted by a subtle loneliness or a kind of confusion. It's like, where's my path? And Jung takes this woman and you can kind of lambast her and be like, you should get married and all that, but that's not going to work. It's not going to work if you just turn around and try to scold someone for something that they am. So what you need to do is you need to think about, well, how can I get her in touch with a fertile, living part of herself, So she's got this little ego that she's built up, this palace of concepts, and she's reached a point in her life where she's like, I don't want the jargon anymore. I want to know. I want to do it. I want to do the procedure. And so what Jung does is he actually, in some sense, he actually just gets out of the way of this whole process. He acts as this subtle guide more than the master plan dude. He acts as this subtle guide and gently nudges her in the right direction. And I've done I'm working with people now, like I'm working with clients, and this is a professional thing for me now. And I've noticed that so often that is actually the graceful touch you have to get. You have to kind of step out of the way and just nudge people in the right direction, and that can make all the difference, And so this is what he sort of does. He sort of pushes her towards painting, which she is doing quite naturally. And he sort of helps her process what's going on. And so she comes at him and she's like, okay, I've got these two parts of my mind, reason and the eyes. And of course, on this channel, we love the left brain, right brain dynamic, and this falls too conveniently into it. When I read this recently in order to do this video, I was like shuddering. I felt like in my soul I was screaming, yes, 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 Carl, yes, yes, Carl, yes. I wanted to send up my spirit to Carlos and be like, you fucking yes, Carl, good man, 10 out of 10, Carl, 5 stars on this page here, Carl, good fucking job. And this is exactly it. It's this the validation, the neuroscience backs up Carl. Carl was right. All yous were wrong. Carl was right. And all those Richard Dawkins are going to get you. Sam Harrison going to get you. Carl was right, man. The reasonable left brain, its job is to take reality, lie about it, and make it functional. And it does this through reason and abstractions and jargon. And it's the ego, and we often get so tragically caught up in that, and we get trapped in this prison. And what's so weird about it, as I said, we build this palace of concepts in our mind, this way of seeing the world in our mind, and what becomes the glue, the concrete that holds together this worldview is often our concepts, our jargon, our bullshit, our patterns, whatever. I've talked about this at length. Now, you have this other part of your mind. Now, the science on this is fascinating, because it actually begins to show that the right brain is literally a separate consciousness. You know, it's a separate presence. It actually thinks and sees things differently. But it's quiet. It doesn't really have a voice. So the sort of left brain has a voice, and it does all this blathering and all this stuff. And it very similar, looks very close to the ego. Whereas the right brain doesn't. The right brain kind of chills and watches what the left brain does and understands why it's doing it, but doesn't interrupt for some reason unless it really thinks it's necessary, and just lets it do it. I think it's CPS Grey UR2. I highly recommend you watch that video. Maybe we'll watch it someday, actually, and we'll discuss all this stuff going on. But it explains it perfectly. The right brain is this separate consciousness, you know? And this is so close to her conceptualization of what's going on. She says the eyes, you know, the second way of seeing things. Brilliant. Brilliant. Because that's exactly what it's like. It's like you've got this other channel, you know? You can think of it like a radio signal. Your focus goes towards... So this is, again, I've talked about this in a lot of these things. Your mind has almost got like three things going on. You've got this weird focus, and then you've got like the thinking left brain, and then there's this other part of your mind that your focus can pay attention to otherwise, which is where your dreams come from at night. You know, when you go sleep and the ego turns off, but your dreams come. Where are the dreams coming from, bro? Are they just like, you know, are they just floating out? Is the ego suddenly turned into a musician in the middle? No, they're coming from somewhere else. And it's almost like a different channel. So you're tuning the radio into a different channel, the other side. And this actually is the creative, fertile one. This is, as I've said before, it's like if you own a garden and you have this like elaborate master plan, and you're like cutting everything up, and you're throwing all this fertilizer onto the garden, and you're too caught up with like reading all the internet and getting all the high tech. You'd probably be better off just, you know, throwing some seeds there and walking away, and maybe coming back and weeding it once or twice and making sure it gets water, and just letting it do its work. It would naturally heal, you know? Let it naturally heal. Let it solve its own problem. But we get in the way of this thing. And there's a part of us in our mind, there's a part of our mind that is naturally fertile, like the garden. It grows naturally. This is where the dreams come from. You don't have to make dreams. You don't have to do anything. The dreams will naturally give you stuff. Every night you'll have a little movie in your head. And you don't need to pay for it. You don't need none of that stuff. It'll just come to you. You know? And it's not stupid either. Just like nature's not stupid. Just like when the garden grows, it's not dumb. The garden doesn't grow and like and shout every morning and be like, yo, which way do we go, man? Where's the sun? Like, do we go left or do we go right or do we go up? Should I be a Republican or Democrat? How does that work? How do I integrate my shadow there?